Alright guys, as I'm sure you can tell from the title of this video, this is a very difficult topic to talk about. And to be perfectly honest with you, I've avoided talking about this topic for quite a while. I've actually sat down to record this video before and then completely backed out of it. And the reason is because I don't necessarily think I'm the best person to talk about this subject. I'm not a mental health professional, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So with that in mind, if you do think that you're experiencing mental health issues, please do seek professional help. Don't feel ashamed about opening up about it, but please do get professional help. I want you to just consider this video to be the equivalent of a friend giving you their 2 cents, not as advice from a professional, because that's not my area at all. So you might wonder then why I'm bothering with this video. And the truth is because I feel like I have to. I mean, I get a lot of emails from people and a lot relating to mental health, ranging from people that have felt negative feelings as a result of their trading, like negative thoughts, all the way to people that are contemplating something as severe as committing suicide as a result of feeling so desperate in a situation directly resulting from their trading. I'm not kidding you about that. And I sit there sometimes and think, I really don't know what to advise these people because I don't want to say anything wrong. I'm perfectly happy to talk people through the problem or to be someone that will listen to people's problems as a friend or as a mentor, but not someone that's going to advise people. But I still feel with those emails that it's very difficult to just sit there and read them and not feel like you need to do something. It's very difficult to be on the sidelines. So with this video, I hope to raise awareness, not in a sort of charity way. I mean, raise awareness that some of you can be aware of these issues and hopefully not encounter them or do things, avoid yourself going down that bad route towards that. And if you are experiencing those situations, those issues, those thoughts, I want you to know that you're not on your own with them. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You really should speak out about it. And that's a real problem that we have because I can see from the stats on this channel that 90% of our audience is male. And there's a stigma when it comes to men with opening up about mental health problems. It's like you've got to be the man, you've got to be macho and you can't talk about it. But that shouldn't be the case. Unfortunately, with trading, it's almost like it gets amplified even more because there's this macho culture with trading, which I think is actually kind of ridiculous. Like, if you think about it, you could probably trace it back to when people were trading in the pit and you had to be a bit like macho and stand up for yourself and be willing to have arguments and conflicts and stuff. That probably translated to Wall Street, where the movies picked it up and glamorized that lifestyle. And now there's this macho culture where we don't want to admit to having weaknesses or, you know, we want to seem like infallible and like the man. You don't want to admit that you have these thoughts. But I think it's really silly because when you actually think about it, there's not much macho in what we're doing. Yes, we're taking risks, but at the end of the day, we're just sitting at a computer staring at a screen. It's not that macho, come on. But with that in mind, the realities of the situation when it comes to trading is that it unfortunately does induce these mental health problems with people. There's a lot of pressure attached to it, a lot of different factors that can really affect the way that you feel. And although I can't find any stats for trading per se, we can find stats for financial services. And in fact, in the City of London, which is sort of the hub for a lot of financial services, there's a higher suicide rate than any other borough in London. Now, you might think that's a coincidence, or you might say that the type of people that go into financial services in the first place are maybe more susceptible to mental health problems, but I think it's more likely that it's down to the job. Let's think about it. There's a high job pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility, especially if you're managing people's money, potentially long working hours, people don't look after their health so much. There's a lack of job security in certain situations because if you're working in banks and stuff like that, then a lot of the layoffs are happening from London. If you're not performing well, you might lose your job, lose your bonus. And if you think about it, it's the same situation for us as traders. Especially if you're moving full time with your trading, there's a real lack of job security. Because although we build into the way that we're trading that you don't want to risk too much for your capital at any time, there's still always that risk that something could happen that wipes out a load of your capital, or that you have a few months where you don't make the income that you need, or you're not hitting the same returns anymore. As well as that, there's a lot of pressure. I know there's obviously some of you that don't ever feel the pressure with your trading, but I personally have felt the pressure a lot of times. I spoke about it in a video a few weeks ago when we first started the Friday one-to-one sessions, but there have been times where, for example, for the whole Christmas period, I had to be checking my blood pressure every day because I had high blood pressure as a result of trading. Or there was a time a few years ago when I had to talk to my business partner, Alexander, say to him that I needed to step away from active trading. We both agreed that I would stop trading actively for a while because I was going through so much pressure with the trading that I wasn't making the same clear decisions as I was before. And it was not only hurting the performance, but also hurting my own health. I've had a lot of health issues because of trading, a lot of negative feelings as well. You know, I've spoken before about how many accounts that I've burnt through to get to the point where I was profitable. And it's almost like people romanticize that and say like, oh, how many accounts did you burn through? Oh, I remember when I was burning through accounts. But let's face it, when you're burning through accounts, there's nothing romantic about it. It's absolutely horrible. Every time I burnt through an account, even if I could afford it, relatively speaking, it felt like shit. Honestly, like I felt like I'd let myself down. I felt like I was further away from my goals. I felt like a failure. The money that I lost hurt me. Sometimes there was some profit that I had that I'd lost in the sort of the process of losing the account, and that hurt as well. I was thinking about the things I could have done with that money. And there's all kinds of feelings. And sometimes that doesn't go away even with your normal trading. Like when you start to become profitable and consistent, if you have a couple of weeks of bad performance or just, you know, other things that are going on in your life start to stress you out, then the trading doesn't help. And also staring at a screen, how lonely it gets at times as well. These things can really weigh on you and start having like this negative, like sort of create this negative environment in your mind, which is not healthy for us. And I see a lot of people going through that. And I think really the solution, or well, I wouldn't say solution because it's not necessarily the solution, but something that can help is to really just take breaks from the trading altogether. I know a lot of you are hungry to succeed, and I've even been like a massive advocate for putting in all the hours you can to really succeed with trading, but not at the expense of your mental health. Like, I think you really need to understand when it's the right time to step away. Now that's one factor, and I won't go into too much detail of that because I think that we're all aware of what the pressures and the risks are when it comes to trading. But also with the trading itself, I mean, with a beginner, sometimes they get very complacent because at the start they might make a lot of money by luck, and they think that's how it's going to continue. They start planning out all the things they're going to do with it, and then when they start losing that, they go into this sort of negative spiral that ends up with them losing more money. Or the alternative, they lose money from the start and they already are in that negative spiral and they want to make it back. But what happens is that you start off with like almost like the seed of a problem, and then it just grows and grows and grows. And it's like what I spoke about in a video earlier in the week where I said about the quote from Ray Dalio, that things in life seem much bigger when they're close up. This seed of a problem seems massive, and so he wants to take another action, opening a trade that's maybe a little bit riskier to try and get rid of that problem. But of course, you might be lucky once to get rid of that problem, but the chances are at some point, if you take that approach more times, that problem's just going to grow. Then you've got to take an equally bigger problem to kind of, or an equally bigger risk to try and get rid of that problem. And it grows and grows and grows into a big snowball that's almost too big to sort of manage then. Now, in some extremes, when we see with like rogue traders in banks, like the famous story of Nick Leeson, it starts off with a small problem where if you admit to the problem and address that problem on its own, then maybe things will be fine, someone can help you out. Maybe you lose your job if you work in a bank. Chances are they'll just sort of, you know, deal with it and give you a warning. But when that problem becomes so big, then with the people in banks, they end up with situations where they could potentially go to prison or lose all the relationships they have, get so stressed that it ruins their life. And the same thing is true with private traders or small traders, that, you know, something that starts off with a small problem gets bigger and bigger until the point where you're starting to borrow money, where I've heard about things like payday loans getting involved, consolidation loans, borrowing money from family and friends to try and get rid of this problem. And all you're doing is making it bigger, because as the stress gets increased, then you're sort of not making the clear decisions anymore, the pressure's increasing, and of course you're going to end up getting in a situation where you're depressed, because this can really break down your relationships. How do you face your family to tell them about money that you've lost? How do you face, you know, this massive debt that you're accruing where you might have to go bankrupt? Like, there's a lot of problems that can really sort of weigh heavily on us, and it's important that we do what we can to avoid those situations. So one thing we can do is address problems when they're small. Just address that problem and don't try and like outdo it with a solution that's going to potentially make it bigger. Like, at that point, don't take more risks. I'd say step away from trading with real money. Go back to a demo account if you want. I know this seems counterintuitive to a lot of people, because once you start having this financial problem, it seems like you need to keep trading to sort of recover. You need to trade because otherwise how are you going to make money? But the truth is, in that situation, if you keep trading, you're more likely to lose money and you make things worse for yourself. So step away from trading. Talk to someone, either a professional that can talk you through any problems that you're having mentally, or family and friends who you know are going to support you. If there's someone else's money involved, which is another thing that I'd say to avoid doing, is taking money from family and friends. But if there's someone else's money and you've been managing on their behalf or borrowed it and you're going to pay it back, tell them up front. Don't try and cover up and then, try and make that money back or anything like that. Just go and tell them. I'm sure that they'll understand. Maybe they'll be annoyed with you in the short term, but over the long term, you'll still have that relationship. If you get to the point where things get so severe that it's like you end up making the situation much worse, that's going to strain the relationship a lot more. And if you really get to the problems where you start feeling like the only way out is to take your own life or anything stupid like that, then it's only going to ruin their lives as well, make them feel horrible, especially if they knew that it was because of something to do with money, or to feel like that you're not achieving your goals, or that you're not taking enough steps in the right direction, that you're not happy with the situation that you're in life. But I think it's this whole thing again of problems seeming bigger when they're closer to us. Like, we need to kind of shift our thinking if possible. I know it's not always easy, and not all depression is because of financial problems or anything like that. Sometimes it's just hereditary or just about other things that have happened in life, and the trading can make it worse. On the other hand, sometimes trading makes it better. I got an email from someone a couple of weeks ago who actually requested I do a video about mental health problems, and they were diagnosed with depression, and trading's actually helped them to recover because it's given them something else to focus on. I imagine that's what it is, that it's given them something else to focus on. So of course there's another side to it, but I feel like we need to be really careful. But you see people that end up getting like addicted to trading. It's almost like gambling at that point. They can't go a day without opening some trades. They just want to have a flutter on it. Sometimes they don't even know what they're doing. They don't know why they opened a trade, but they felt that they had to. And that's the same kind of addiction as gambling addiction. And it happens. And that's also a mental health issue of some sort. And it's something that needs to be sorted. You need to get help with that. Like I said at the beginning, it's not something to be ashamed of. I think there's a huge portion of people these days that experience mental health problems, things like depression. And if we all spoke about it more, maybe people wouldn't bottle it up so much. And sometimes you need that external point of view to point out what you're doing or what you could change to make yourself happier, to get out of a situation that you're in. And let me reiterate, no situation is ever so desperate that the only way out is to take your own life. And if you're around people that are just making it worse, you need to understand when it's the right time to cut people out, or to, even if trading is the thing that's making it worse for you, to completely stop trading altogether. Maybe it's not the right thing for you. Maybe you need some time focusing on other areas of your life and, get into a state where you're happy and you're content. So guys, I'm sure you can tell that I'm struggling with knowing the right thing to say, and I don't want to put my foot in it and make matters worse for anyone. So I'm going to leave that there and just say that I hope you're all well. And if anyone thinks that I've overstepped the mark or I've been insensitive about this or done it in the wrong way, then I'm truly sorry. It wasn't my intention to make things worse for anyone, but I appreciate you watching. Take care.